Welcome. Before we begin, I just want to say a few words about the organization 3PDK. This webinar is hosted by 3PDK, which is a non-profit organization based in Denmark. Our purpose is to spread the understanding of the three principles. This understanding is a spiritual understanding and is spreading all over the world. The understanding of the three principles has helped people overcome stress, anxiety, addiction, depression, and help people find their way back to clarity, inner calm, and mental health again and again. You can learn more about 3PDK on our website, 3PDK, and in our Facebook, Tre De Tre Principper Danmark. Today, we welcome Fenella Blakaj on today's topic. We are power, we are peace, connection, and self-worth. And welcome, Fenella. I think you need to unmute yourself because I did it. Good, thank you very much. Welcome, Fenella. It is a tremendous joy that you are joining us. Thank you very much for taking your time to come and talk to us. And if you would begin and introduce yourself, and let's see where it will lead us.
Yes, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We never know where it's going to lead us until we've started. So for those of you who haven't seen me before, my name is Fenella, and I've been around the principles for quite some years. Enjoyed the impact it had on my life first, then greatly enjoyed the impact it had on the upbringing of my children and on my marriage, like the relationship I had with my husband. And then continued enjoying the impact it had on the children that I got to work with and the schools that I got to work with. And now there's a lot of schools internationally that I work with and help teachers see more clearly see who they have in front of them and realize that a child that is acting up is not a bad child. A child that rebels and doesn't want to learn what you try and teach them is not just wanting to be horrible. So currently, I just really love being a human being. I love passing that on to people. And I love seeing the spark in people's eyes when they realize that that is who they are. Because so many young people, children, adolescents, but also teachers are lost in a maze. And it's the maze of their own creational powers. And that amazes me. Because we get caught up, don't we, daily, hourly, in the creation that we create. The ideas that we think are important right now. Whenever we do get caught up, we simultaneously forget who we really are. And I'm finding it quite miraculous at the moment. I've had a phase. I don't know what it is about spring because I had a phase like that last year as well, where it seems like I understand more and more and more and more and deeper and deeper and deeper. And that is the beauty of it. we get to understand who we are on a level that is so impactful that down to the body system, we get a yes to life, a yes to love, a yes to every single child that we come in contact with, a yes to every single teacher who thinks they are experiencing burnout. Because from where I stand currently, there is no burnout. And I know this might come across really wrong for people who are currently experiencing worry or stress or burnout or depression or whatever. But the deeper we see into the human experience, the more we realize, yeah, we are power. We are peace. We are love. And we are tranquility. Now, I don't know whether the people who are currently online, what you most wanted was to hear about how this translates into the classroom, or whether you would like to hear about another aspect. So what I would love to do right at the beginning is to just sort of ask you, what would you most like to speak about, hear, share? And we'll take it from there if that is okay for everybody. We just go with the flow and we'll see where we will end up in an hour's time.
Wonderful. Yes. And to everybody, you can just write in the chat if you need that, or if you need help in translation or whatever. You just say in the comment or in the chat, and I will help you. Or just raise your hand. Yeah. So you're welcome to just raise your hand or unmute yourself and speak, and we'll see where it takes us. Yeah. Thank you. For my aspect, can you say why I invited you as a host for the 3PDK organization? Is this thing about a lot of us, we are talking about the mental health crisis, or we're talking about how the children are doing worse and worse, and we have more and more young people not going to school or isolating themselves, and more parents getting really worried. And this is one of the things that is very close to my heart, is to talk into this, to see the well-being, the health in these young children, instead of focusing on the opposite. That is one point for me. This is why I also invited you. And I can see also that Anne, please do speak. We'll get back to my question later. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Fenella. Thank you for being here with us today. I want to ask, I work with young people in a Danish organization called Headspace, and we have some group activities, and I want to ask your experience with more practical exercises that can, maybe in a group-based setting, make some reflections for the young people, or for the people working with the young people, because I'm very motivated to go out and somehow influence more. And so I know you have so much experience. I would love to hear if you have something more practical on how to elaborate more on the principle. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll gladly answer that. So, in my experience, the most important thing is whatever the age group, whatever the question, show up with love and show up with um, your deepest grounding possible at that given moment. So, like sometimes we will go into a group. I don't know which age are we talking about, if you could share that quickly.
They are between 12 and 25, so teens and youngsters. Yeah.
And troubled young people.
Well, they can actually come and talk to volunteers about anything. But yes, many of them are troubled from experiences in their homes or with their friends or relatives, so on. Yeah.
So what I see working really, really well for groups of teenagers is speaking through the language of metaphors and giving them a common ground to communicate from with each other. Because often young people will get into conflict with themselves, get into conflict with each other, with their parents, and they find it very, very difficult to word their conflict other than what they have been taught by the current paradigm. And the current paradigm is doing them good and at the same time not doing them very good. Because what we experience is that so many young people are caught up in their feelings, and their feelings are being validated over and over and over again, and they are being made very, very important. And then there's not that much space left for the feeling of somebody else, because my feeling is so very important. And it's a shift that has happened all over Europe, really, over the past maybe 10 years, where there is that very strong belief in, well, if you feel it, it must be true. If you feel it, it must be taken serious. If you feel it, we must speak about it. We have to understand where it is coming from. So we have to kind of like find the reason in the past or find the reason in the outside. And what works really, really well with a lot of young groups is to just put that question out. So I love doing that when I have a new group. I will go to the board and I will say, okay, I would love to ask you all a question. So no matter whether they're 12, 15, 17, you can use the same question. And I say, can everybody briefly go inside and ask themselves what percentage of your feeling comes from the outside and what percentage of your feeling comes from the inside? And then you let them think for a while. Most frequently, groups of young people will set the level of my feelings come from the outside to about 85%, and 15% comes from the inside. And then I love playing with them. So you have that, and then you might have one or two who say, no, hang on, it's 50-50. And most of them at the beginning of a session will be around the 85% or at least 70. So I then say, oh, that's really interesting. How come some of you think it's so much and some of you think it's 50-50? Let's play some games. And I will give some really, really easy examples. So my favorite one is, can you please all pretend that I have a bag and I'll place an invisible bag on the table, and I say, okay, and there's actually something in there that is alive, and I'll make them guess what it might be. So they come up with ideas, and already there you see that they have different ideas. You can use that later. And then I say, well, actually, it's a puppy. It's a really, really cute baby dog. And then I pretend to take it out of the bag, and I will say something like, how does that make you feel? Now, most of the children or teens will go, oh, so cute. And I say, it's interesting. If I had one of my students here right now, he wouldn't agree with you. He is so scared of dogs. So how come if feelings come from the outside, he could experience something very different when I put the dog on the table as to what you experience right now? And then I just take it from there. So it's often just a playing with their minds, because in my understanding, teaching the principles doesn't work. They have to experience it for themselves. They have to experience, oh, okay, that's an interesting thing that we just looked at there. And then I exchange, since my bag is invisible, and there's nothing in there, I exchange the puppy for a huge tarantula. And I say, okay, so how does that make you feel? And then I say, okay, can you imagine it crawling out with its, and oh, it's on the table now. Now it's crawling towards you. Now it's crawling towards you. And then you get a lot more diverse answers as to how that makes them feel. So often I will play with them for about 20 minutes, imaginary scenes, and then I will slowly guide them into, okay, I'd like you to remember the last time that you were really angry at a teacher. And I would like you to tell me what the teacher did that made you so angry. Then, so in a school class, this is easy because they all share the same experience. So one of the children will give an example, and then I can ask, okay, did that make everybody angry? And then you'll have hands going up saying, no, actually, it didn't make me angry. I thought the teacher was right. And then all of a sudden you're in that game of right and wrong. And this really helps them to realize, as a first step, oh, hang on a minute. My feelings cannot be coming from the outside to the percentage that I thought they were. And so very often I take it from there, and I sort of say, okay, so if they don't come from the outside, where do they come from? So whichever way, starting with feeling, because feeling is something that they know, is something that they have been taught, is something that they take awfully seriously. And just sort of opening that space from which they can realize, oh, hang on a moment, my feelings actually change. And then you get into a conversation with them and you listen really deeply. So how do they change? Is it the outside situation? And then I will often ask questions like, have you ever had a situation where you were really, really mad at your best friend? And then you look into their face and you see that they're actually hurt because you're so mad at them. And just like that, you're not mad anymore. Have you ever had that? Well, they're teenagers, so of course they've had that. Or have you ever had it that you come home and you're in a really, really good mood, but then you open the door and all of a sudden your mood just drops? And there's not even anybody there, but your mood drops. how does that happen? And this way you can start having a beautiful conversation about the connection between feeling and thinking. In my experience, that is one of the easiest ways in. And it doesn't devalue their feelings. It just shows them where they come from. And then, like, if you've set the ground like that, you can use that when you talk to individual people and they come with their troubles, and then you can sort of say, remember how in the group we were speaking about that? Is that something that might be at play right now? That might be at play when you get upset or when you feel inclined to self-harm. I don't know, in Denmark, I assume, or I've spoken actually to some people that is also very, very high, right? The whole self-harming and self-inflicting pain. So that's a really nice way into that, where you don't tell them, well, your feeling is just a thought, because that would be like taking something away from them that they identify with. But the moment they can understand that you're just there, pointing, guiding, and to me, it is always very, very spontaneous. I don't prepare a set of things that I am going to speak about. I walk in, I show up, and then I respond to whatever is in the room. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Like I think as pedagogues, many of us do that anyway. And it's just about bringing it to that next level where you trust that your intuition is going to find the right words for that group of teens or children. You're going to find the right game to play. And I think one of the most important things is to not set the scene in a way that it clashes. Like if we go into the group, we are so enthused about helping them understand that it's a thought made reality. We sometimes get carried away, don't we? And we want to shove it down their throat, like, no, but it's a thought, can't you see? Whilst we're there, we're totally in our thoughts. So I don't know whether that answers the question that you had, whether that is any helpful, or whether you would like to go deeper.
I think it's a really good answer, and I love the first question. I'm gonna bring that with me. So thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
And if there is anybody else who has any questions or want to say something or wants Fenella's view on something, please do speak up. Let's see.
Maybe while people are thinking about their questions, or sometimes it's also we feel like we would love to ask something, but something is holding us back and we don't. So whilst people sort of look at their inner horizon and see whether there is anything that they would love to contribute or love to ask or share, I'll answer your question. Or I don't think it's about answering. I'll gladly dive into the depths of that question with all of you. So this reality of many, many, many young people facing more and more mental health issues is a Europe-wide phenomenon. And I think we could probably include Canada and the USA as well. And it is something that is coming up in young people, in my view, because they have so much input about potentially not being healthy, about potentially their upbringing having done something to them that was not right, about potentially having been misunderstood. And because there is such a focus on how are you feeling, sweetheart? What is this doing to you? What did the teacher say to you today? What did your friend said that to you? That is really awful. And we very innocently, as parents and often as pedagogues, fall into the trap of empathizing whilst not really seeing what is going on. Now, there's nothing wrong with empathy. Empathy is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And our young people need empathy because they really do hurt. They're not cutting their arms for fun. They are not thinking suicidal thoughts because they think that's cool. But they're innocently misunderstanding the most powerful gift that exists on this planet. And the most powerful gift that exists on this planet is our creational power. Within no time, us human beings are capable of creating inner turmoil, inner desperation from feeling happy to feeling unbelievably hurt and misunderstood and worthless, wrong. It can often only take a few seconds. Somebody says something that makes sense in my current thinking system, and it's like there's a whole army of thoughts coming in support of that statement. And what our young people are really suffering from is that they've been given that creational gift, but they've not been given a manual. And when they suffer, they go and share with professionals. Now, the biggest problem is that the professionals don't have the manual either. And they innocently guide them into a belief system in which they can be wrong, in which something can be broken. But when they do, they have validation. And the validation makes the thought more real. You know how thinking always validates itself anyway? It's like the craziest thing, isn't it? You have a thought, and then you're like, no, I shouldn't be thinking that. But then you've got 10 other friend thoughts that come along, and they're like, yes, you should be thinking that, definitely. So we already have a self-validating system. But now those young people have a validation system of professionals, a validation system of friends, a validation system of their parents, and a validation system of TikTok and a validation system of Instagram. I don't know whether you've ever tried what happens if you've got a TikTok account, a brand new one, and you start typing, looking for self-harm, how long it takes until your algorithm validates everything you could possibly think. And that's what's currently wrong. And it's not that anybody has made like a big mistake. And, I don't know, some people say, oh my God, psychologists are just the worst, or oh man, pedagogues don't know anything, and the parents of today are doing it all wrong. I wouldn't say that. I would say that they are innocently guided towards worry. And when we worry, we're not the best advisors. Like, you give me one mother of a 14-year-old who is self-harming, who doesn't go into a future scenario in which her child or his child will suffer greatly. It's almost automatic, isn't it? We encounter difficulty, we begin to worry, and our thinking just goes wild until we understand what is happening with our thinking. So that as a beginning, maybe, to a conversation. I see that Christina has her hand up, so I'll stop talking for a moment, and then we'll continue in a minute.
Yeah, but what you said about Fenella, and by the way, hi, nice to see you. About the TikTok and the searching for the validation in the exterior, to me it also blends in with, there's a sort of taboo according to pointing to what is bigger than you. So if the kid is left with the idea that you are the builder of your own life all alone, it's a huge responsibility. And we might know, us that are sitting here, that something else is supporting us. But in society, Western society, it's my impression that it has gained, or at least in the circles that I move, it's my impression that it has gained status or validity to devaluate spirituality or devaluate God or mind or universal mind or whatever it is, and leaving the kids with all this responsibility that you are the only responsible for your life. It's really, really a huge thing, with all the choices and all the things that they need to navigate in. So that's what's taking up space in my mind. How can we make it legitimate again to point to that we are not omnipotent in the world of form?
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
We need to make alliance to the greater force. If not, we're very lonely.
So, this reminds me of something I did 4 days ago. Today's Tuesday, yeah, last Thursday. So, with a group of my children in my school. For those who don't know, I run a school in Switzerland that is fully based on the Tre Principles, and it's a secondary school. So our youngest are 11, 12, and 12 years old. And last Thursday, I told them about the inner star. And I described, every human being has an inner star. And that inner star will always, always speak your truth to you. Now, the inner star lives in the heart. And I say the heart is full of feelings. And those feelings sometimes cover the inner star. and we think it's no longer there. And we think our guiding system has gone wonky, it's gone wrong, because there's so many feelings above it. And then one kid put their hand up and said, well, but Fenella, it can break, can't it? And I said, sweetheart, it can't. It can never break. And then another kid put their hand up and said, but what if there is so many feelings over it that I can't see it anymore? And then I said, that can happen. It can happen that there are so many feelings overlaying the star in your heart that it might feel like you're all alone and lost. But there's a secret I haven't told you yet. And then they were all like big ears, because they love secrets, don't they? So I said, there's a secret I haven't told you yet. Did you know that the star inside of your heart is actually connected to a much bigger star? And that is an easy way to not make it religious. It's just connected to a bigger star. And then I said, can you imagine how every child's star is connected to the same bigger star? And that bigger star broadcasts music all day long. All day long. And your little star inside of your heart is like a radio that can tune into that. But, have you ever seen old radios? And, often they haven't. So you have to bring one in so that they get the experience of searching for a broadcast station. They actually enjoy doing that. And I think it's really important for them, because nowadays you don't have that feeling anymore. So the metaphor doesn't work as well. But once they've learned, you can turn the knob and then you will catch various radio stations. And then I said, in many, many ways, the radio station that I call the radio station of love is always broadcasting. And it is always sending the most gentle music that is right for you. We're not all hearing the same music. It might sound different to each of us, but we recognize it because it gives us that feeling of absolute everything's good. Whatever that music might be for you. And they understand that really easily. There's the big star. It broadcasts music. The music is made to match me. I can get it with my little star. And when I feel other feelings, well, I'm just not attuned to my star. And that is something that I speak a lot about with my oldest students, so the 17, 18, and 19-year-olds. They hear a lot of, if it is not love and peace, it's on me. Meaning, it's within my power to attune to the radio station that has the sound. And I agree with you totally, Christina, that feeling that there is no radio station that is broadcasting, whoa, I wouldn't want to live in a life like that. But knowing that there is one, I can deal with any feeling that comes along. And I can take that feeling seriously for as long as I want to, because I know all I have to do is turn the knob and the feeling will pass. So there's that metaphor that I've been using over the past 2 weeks for my oldest students. And I'd love to share it with all of you, because my students say it's quite powerful for them. So I wish I could draw. because I usually draw it on the board for them. So we're going to have to imagine it together. Can you imagine stardust in all the colors of the rainbow? Sparkly, beautiful, love-filled stardust. And it's everywhere. And then I say to them, okay, now I'd like you to imagine that same stardust as sand. You're standing on that sand and it's all colorful. You've got all the colors you could ever wish for. So it's above you, it's around you, and you stand on it. Now, there's only one way that this stardust can come onto the field that you're standing on, and that's the field of consciousness. You're standing on the field of consciousness. So I said, you know, do you know those little sand playing devices that kids can stack above, like one piece over the other, and then you can pour water through or you can pour sand through and it will come down at the bottom? But when you misalign them, the sand sort of triggers out everywhere and not really where it's meant to go. So I say to my 17 and 18-year-olds, look, life is really straightforward and very easy. You were given those beautiful forms that you can keep in alignment. And when the stardust goes through them, it will always go onto the same point of consciousness, which you will experience as love. But it's very possible for you to have those bricks and misalign them. Now, remember when I said the only way that the stardust or mind can make itself felt is by going through one of those forms, by taking on form, which in a matter of speaking is thought. Now, if you're misaligning them so far, now you've got sand that can go through here, but you also have a bit that can go through here. Now they will reach the ground, your consciousness, on very different points, and you will experience something else than love. One of them might be in the middle of the sky and the stardust goes through and it hits the ground and you're going to experience anger. Or it might be further there and you might experience fear. But knowing that you can always realign them. And to a great extent, you have a choice to realign them. The choice is just remembering, who am I? Remembering, wow, hang on a minute. I am the thing in between. I am what aligns the power, the loving power that is, with the experience in consciousness. I'm the person who puts those forms to where I want to have them. And I went one step further than that because they really understood that. They were like, wow, wow. And then I said, yeah, and then, you know, once they're in alignment, and remember how I said they only ever touch love and peace when they're in alignment, there is one other force that can move them. But only that force can move them in the precision needed for the stardust to fall onto the place of consciousness that is called intuition. That's not your finger moving it, sweethearts. Intuition is love force itself deciding to move it into alignment so that you can experience intuition. So that's why I keep saying, follow your intuition, follow your heart. Because intuition will be the thing that will help you align fully. Now, isn't that just something? You know, like if you imagine every teacher in Europe knowing this. Now, this is where I become very passionate and very enthusiastic, as you know. I want every single pedagogue to understand this, to experience it, to feel it, to see it at work. And that's the beauty about the three principles. There's nothing we say that anybody would ever have to believe. Because there's nothing to believe. It's all experience. We experience that, we play around with that a bit, and we're like, oh, wow. And that is when mental health issues just stop existing. And yes, there are people who repetitively put the blocks back into a certain position. So yes, oh, that happens to me. Does that mean that I have to go and talk to somebody about why that is happening to me? Or is it enough to just state, oh no, it's happened again? And then have an empathic ear of somebody who stands there and takes you in their arms and says, oh, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry it's happening again. Let me hug it into alignment. Let me love you so much until you remember that you love yourself. And to me, it is the absolute key.
Thank you.
You know, it's not as if the students in our school didn't have any problems. They do.
Of course.
They do. But the beauty is if we know, right?
Thank you. It was a beautiful metaphor. It's a little like the spine, actually.
It is.
I think also this is like one of the wonderful things as a teacher to, you know, to have met the principles. And I remember Mette Louise Holland, our Danish, she talked about this when the child is in chaos. So it looks out into, you know, it's in this chaos and it's looking out to the world, wanting to be met with calmness and say, it's okay, you're in chaos. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Relax. Because this is one of the things I have experienced now is giving me amazing results when working with children is that when they come to me, and they do, of course, we are the teachers or the pedagogues and we are around them sometimes even more than their parents are. So they're coming with these feelings that are enormous and they're big and they're afraid of them, and then they're met with calmness. You know, it's okay. I am sorry you're, you know, right now you're lost in this emotion and it's okay, but hey, I can handle it. But before I was like, really, are you feeling that? Oh my God, okay, let me help you, let me fix you, let me, you know, from a really good place, from a good heart. I wanted to help. I really wanted to help them. This is why I'm working with children and everything. But understanding and seeing that the best thing I can do is to show them it's going to be okay. Okay, I can handle your emotion. I'm not afraid of your emotion. Then you don't have to be afraid. So it's like they're looking out at calmness instead of seeing me reacting, with chaos or with worry.
Yeah, and I think isn't that just key? Like once we see, oh, I don't have to go onto the roller coaster with you to help you deal with the roller coaster. I can just stand on the ground and say, hey, sweetheart, I've got you. I've got you.
Hmm.
And even if the roller coaster is a really, really dangerous one, it is so much more helpful for the adult in the game to say, you're going to be okay. There are safety belts. You're going to be okay. Rather than me standing down there screaming, going, oh my God, are you okay? It's going to be horrible. Because then we're validating thought that shouldn't be validated. So there's a big difference in validating feeling to validating the thinking that caused the feeling. So we can help young people understand that they don't have to take the thought seriously, whilst at the same time still being there for them and just giving that presence that they need. And the more teachers in one school have understood that they don't have to be afraid of the experience, the better the whole atmosphere in the school becomes. Because imagine not just one or two of us being in one school, but a whole team understanding. And obviously, people will understand on various levels. It's not that every person who comes across the principles immediately gets the same level of grounding. For some, it's a longer process. For others, it's a fast process. We can never really know when it's going to happen. We think, wow, I can't go any deeper than I am right now, and whoop, off the boat goes, and you go deeper. So we don't know, and that is completely okay. But if a whole team in a school can point towards health over and over and over again, rather than pointing in the direction of, oh, youth is at risk. I love saying youth is at promise rather than at risk. It's something I got out of a conversation with Kathy Emerson, who is also a 3P, old guard 3P person. And I love that. They're not at risk. They are at promise. Now, if we all understand that, it's just going to be a very different game. And at the same time, I say, we have to catch the ball before we can pass it on. So shifting into a healthier mode of education starts with the teachers, should then go on to the parents, and the children are just at the experiencing end of it. I don't think that children actually need a lot of verbalized teaching if the parents and the teachers around them have really understood. Yeah, there's a question.
Can you hear me? I just wanted to share that very early on when I met the principals, and I got this with the kids and also adults that gets diagnosis, and it's just there's an epidemic, isn't it? It's just everybody gets 50 different ones. It's just a part of evolution. It's just, there's nothing wrong. It's just, we just have to be patient. And at one point when they each by one will see the reality, they will shift just like we're doing. So there's nothing wrong. It's just the end of like an era in a way of with feelings. So it's gonna be a huge thing when it's a tidal wave that is just beginning now, because the evolution is also like that we are humans, we are spirit that wants to have the human experience of feelings, and now it's full on, and then the realization about it will come. It's just a matter of time. So I'm not afraid. I see it as it's just part of it's just being patient. It's gonna be all right, definitely. And of course it's a tough time for the kids and for everybody when we're caught in our feelings. So of course, but caught in the mind, caught in the thinking. Yeah. So it's just part of evolution. That's what I saw very early on. So it's nice to hear, just being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It almost seems like we're in a game, and you know how the old computer games, you would have like one level where you hop over a stone, but then comes the second level, then you hop over the stone and there's birds that attack you from the sky. And then comes the third level, and there's the stones, and then there's holes, and then there's the birds. And in the fourth level, you also get fire, and in the fifth level, you get whatever. It continues. And I like to say, well, yeah, we're just on level 55. There's a lot, because there's a lot to discover. And often it is the pain that makes us look inward. It is the experience of the feelings that makes us actually say, hang on a minute, this can't be it. I think the thing that worries people, and the reason why I am very passionate about bringing this into more schools, is that when you're in the game and you take it very seriously, the consequences can be very serious. So I'm not talking about the consequences of having some cut up arms. Most of my students who have that problem tattoo over it when they're about 20 or 22. So there's beautiful tattoos all over. But I'm talking about all of the worry that is increased around the young person. The parents are worried, they are creating stress. It's you have to go to school and then you can't go to school and then you need mental health assistance and then you need this and that. And I just think that the time is coming, as you said, Dennis, that the time is coming where we're not going to have to go to those extremes in order to understand who we are. And in order for that time to come, it is my strong belief that the people who have understood feel inclined to share. It happens naturally, doesn't it? You understand something and you're like, I want people to know this. I want more people to know this. And that's how it creates that beautiful ripple effect. Because everybody who is touched and understands that we are not our thinking, we are not our feeling, we are something far greater. So what we say in our school to students, we will always say, you can feel that way. You may feel that way, but you don't have to. And there's something really beautiful about the non-judgmental thing of, hey, you can. You may. It's okay if you want to. But I just want you to know that you don't have to. I want you to know that there is the option of just turning that radio knob, and you will feel very, very differently. And I find it amazing how, all of us, we go in and out and in and out and in and out. So the deeper our grounding is, the less painful the in and out becomes, or the faster it becomes. Like you're in, you're out, but then you realize, oh, it actually feels better to be in. So it just goes faster with increased grounding, in my experience. That doesn't mean that we don't have our moments where we think. And through thinking, we create realities that are non-existent. And then we're like, oh no, hang on a minute. I prefer that other reality. I prefer the reality where I look into all of your faces and I'm like, oh, I love what I see. I see human beings. I see love in form. And that's a much more beautiful experience than if we go around judging people, judging ourselves, judging our students. Yeah. So thank you.
And that just took me back to the text we originally wrote about this webinar tonight, about this, how the school system is fear-based. There's too much fear in the school system, too much worry. So that we are like, creating more worry. It just took me to that, said, okay, we see this, because this is also sometimes actually I find it also a little bit difficult to be the one that doesn't worry, because sometimes you can actually be not judged, but somehow, no, but Marie-Louise, you're not serious because you must be worried now. You are a teacher and you must be worried now because this is serious. And then when I'm not worried, and then it can kind of actually be difficult to be in an environment in a what do you call it, a teacher group or in a team where there is this huge worry about, for an example, a student that is even self-harming or there is something. And then when you're not worried, it's kind of like, but then you're not serious, Marie-Louise. You're not doing your job okay because you are not worried. You're supposed to be worried now because this student is really suffering. That can also be kind of difficult to be in as a teacher, actually, or just as an individual, as a person. And that just reminded me of that.
Isn't it's a slippery slope, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because obviously we need to know to draw the line when we see one of our students is seriously caught up in thinking. We draw the line, we make sure they get assistance, or we help them ourselves if we are so trained and can do that. But often when a student expresses some pain, we can actually push them further into that by thinking we're helping. So the other day we had one of our students that was very, very frustrated about a mathematical class. And she said to the teacher, well, I feel unbelievably frustrated and I think I should jump out of this window right now. Now, the teacher freaked for a moment and she came to me and she said, what should I do? She's expressed suicidal thoughts. And so I asked her, okay, can you repeat exactly, what was going on? What did the child say? And what state is the child in now? So she said, well, I brought her along. I think she should talk to you. So I sort of looked around and I saw her sitting in a corner. And I first sort of helped the teacher to become a bit calmer by just stating, right now, she's okay. Right now, she's sitting here, okay? So you can let go and let me have a talk with her. And I got the kid into my office and we talked a little. And I said, sweetheart, was something really deeply frustrating you there? And she started talking about mathematics. And I said, okay. And that made you feel really, really bad. And she went down the lane of, yeah, and I've been feeling more bad lately. And there's other things that are making me feel bad. And I said, okay, would you like to share? And I just went into a deep listening moment with her. And so she shared this and that and the other. And I said, does it always feel like that? And she looks at me and she goes, no. And I said, okay, is it feeling like that right now here? And she goes, no. And then I said, why do you think that is? And then she says, well, because you cheered me up. And I said, did I? How did I do that? And she goes, well, you listened, but you were not scared. And I said, oh, okay, and that cheered you up? And she said, yeah, because you were not scared, I could understand that I wasn't going to jump out of the window. So that was like a first episode. We continued after that and, spoke about repetitive thinking coming up and the fact that she is 13 at that. I explained to her, you're in a theme park and so far you were in a theme park with only kind of like really easy rides. But now you're in adolescence. So now you get to ride the big rides. But you're still in the theme park, sweetie. So you just promise me one thing. If you get onto a really, really big ride, you come and you speak. Don't ever believe the music that is on the ride. Now, going to what you said, Marie-Louise, obviously, in any average school, other teachers might judge us for that kind of action. And I personally would call it dangerous with anybody who doesn't have a really deep grounding and doesn't know where the line is. But that's where intuition comes in, and that's where really deeply understanding the human mind comes in. If you cannot shift them in a good conversation, well, then it is time to take it more seriously. So we're not propagating any form of not taking the emotions of our students seriously. But we are propagating taking their state of consciousness into the equation and taking their absolute huge capability of resilience into the equation. And the more we can pass on the message, human beings are resilient beings. Human beings go in and out of feelings. No feeling stays forever. The more we can help. Another thing that I use a lot with my youth is the image of I've created that image of a mountain, and and there's a cave at the bottom, and in the cave there are crocodiles, and crocodiles talk a lot of shit. So when you're in the cave and you hear the crocodiles talking shit, what might happen is they might guide you deeper and deeper into the cave. And then there's a door in the cave that leads you to the lower cave. That's where the dragons live. Now, if you ever go through that door, you need to go and speak to somebody, because the dragons talk such deep shit that most probably you won't be able to deal with it on your own. You will need somebody to guide you back to the crocodiles and back out of the cave. Never forget, you've been given a backpack that holds marshmallows, and they're magic marshmallows. The moment you take one out, they insides, and you can just stuff it into the mouths of the crocodiles, and then they've got something to munch on. And while they're munching, you can walk out of the cave and you can go onto a different level of your mountain. And when you're at the top of the mountain, you're free to be without help. When you're at the bottom of the mountain, never take a decision. And that's the one rule I give to all of my more endangered young people, is you never take a decision when on a low. You just don't, full stop. You don't decide to take the razor blade into your hand. You don't decide to climb up a really dangerous high hill. You don't decide to walk the streets at night. You just don't decide, because you know you're in the cave of crocodiles. And when you're in the cave of crocodiles, there's only one thing for you to do: unpack the marshmallows. That's best done when you're at home. Talk to somebody that you enjoy, that you know will make you feel better. Guide yourself back out of the crocodiles. Read a good poem, listen to some good music, distract yourself, because otherwise the crocodiles are going to guide you to the dragons. And that's what happens when they have episodes where they need to self-harm. They've ended up in the dragon cave. And at the same time, yes, Marie-Louise, I know the feeling where people will second guess you, and then it depends on your grounding on how you can respond. Because once we've really deeply understood, we can even then say, it's okay, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I'm not inventing things. So can you trust me? If you'd like to, I'd love to explain to you why I am dealing with this the way I am. Yeah. Are there any more questions or insights or...
There is somebody here writing, wow, I just love the metaphor of the theme park. That's so lovely. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of metaphors like that. I'm actually currently working on a picture book that one of my students drew all the metaphors. And so like I told them, she drew them, and we're kind of like co-working. So we want to create a booklet that teachers can use in their classes, and it will just be the images and always an explanation of the metaphor, and then a set of images.
Nice. That's going to be wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And we are just about there. Nice and quiet. We're getting close. And does anybody else want to say something or share something? Then please do that. Something that I personally thought about a lot about last time when you were here visiting us in Denmark. Can you maybe just here talk a little about this? You drew this square where you were talking about coming from a warm and calm. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about that before we?
Yeah, totally. So that basically comes down to so the teacher or the pedagogical approach that I am propagating in schools is called CORE, which stands for clear-minded, open-hearted resilience education, and it's the translation of the three principles into education. And within that, I have come up with that square, which is very, very helpful for a lot of teachers. So basically, if you kind of like divide that way, and then you've got on the top left, you would have warm, and on the bottom left, you would have cold. And on the top right, you would have clear, and on the bottom right, you would have confused. Those are the four basic states that we can be in. We can be clear or confused, we can be warm, or we can be cold. Now, what's happened to our society is that most of the education is happening from here to here, meaning warm and confused. We don't really know what we're talking about, but we talk about it in warmth. So it's this looking at each other level on no authority, no nothing. It's like, I speak to you, my darling, and you know, is it really you would rather have 3 more hours of TikTok? Okay, I'm not sure whether that is healthy, but yeah, you know, yes. No, don't shout at mummy. It's not friendly when you do, or you feel like you want to shout. No, that's okay. So there's the confusion, and we keep staying in the warmth, which is not the healthiest upbringing for our children. Even worse is when we are cold and confused. We will create awful scenarios for our kids where they just can't get it right. Because if I'm cold, I don't feel any love for you, and I'm confused on top of that, I will give you twisted messages, contradictory messages. I will demand one thing of you, and then when you start doing that, I will demand the next thing of you so that you can never get it right. If we are cold and clear, that's just painful. It's the kind of teachers who are like, no, shut up. No, you do not go to the toilet right now. I don't care whether you have a problem or not. Sit still now. It's very clear, but it's cold. And what we need is warm clarity. So that is why in core, clear-minded is the clarity, open-hearted is the warmth, and then resilience education is the three principle paradigm. So when we get into that warm clarity, it's all about, okay, look, right now, this is the task that I've asked you to do. I get that that might be a bit difficult for you right now. You can walk out for 10 minutes, but you're going to do that task. And it's about that beautiful learning to just tell ourselves, where am I at right now? And it's a tool that a lot of teachers really cherish. They say once they've heard about it, it becomes much easier for them to realize, where am I in my own grounding? And they don't need to know anything about the three principles in order to understand that. It's very basic. That's one of the things that I have in core. And speaking about core, I really, really, really need to speak to you, Marie-Louise and Christina. We need to set up another meeting, because I want core to go a long way, and there are many little things like that square that makes it much easier for teachers to live the three principles, to understand the three principles without it needing to be outerworldly. The realization that there is a spiritual aspect to it comes automatically. We don't need to teach that. We understand that when we reach that level inside of us, at some point, well, there's no question, is there? And funny enough, everybody gets there. Like even the people who start out as, material world, they somehow end up somewhere else, but not because somebody told them, but because they started listening for something new.
And also this, I think it's a good, like this square or this tool, let's call it, it's like this tool or method, the awareness of where I am. So instead of having my focus on where is the student, I'm actually focusing on where am I coming from? And the energy which comes from me. And this makes it every time I can experience, because as we all do, we sometimes get caught up. I get warm and confused, and sometimes I might even also get cold and clear, and that's not what I want to be. But this thing about my own awareness, my consciousness about where I am, makes a huge difference. And I have this, I would really love to share right now. We've got this exam period here in Denmark. A lot of young students, they've just been to the written exam right now in our gymnasiums. They're, sitting there and sweating. And now the oral exams are beginning. And for that, in my school, they have to be, they have to prepare a lot of things like a portfolio. And of course, some of the students along the year, they forgot about that assignment and that assignment and that assignment because they were anywhere else. So right now, when they're doing the portfolio, they're like, oh my God, it's not there. I don't know what to do. I don't know where it's gone. And I was sitting with this guy and he was like, oh, Marie, you got to help me. You got to help me. And I was like, I was experiencing this really warm. I was coming from, I really care about you. It was, I love you, but I am not doing the work. I am right here with you, but you need to understand I am not doing the work for you because I actually care so much about you that would not be helping you. Then we are just shoveling, the shit in front of you, or no, we gotta stop that. You need to learn to take responsibility. There is an action, and by that action, there's a consequence. But the experience of it was coming from such a deep place in me that the reaction was just, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You're going to sit right here next to me. I'm going to be sitting right here. And I might point to a different folder, but I'm not doing the job. And to see this young student going from having almost nothing to actually being ready to go to his exam. And what was really wonderful was to see his mood, his confidence, the way his feelings, they were just, he was, oh my God, I did it. And he gave me a Coca-Cola Zero code. He knows I love that. And it was like, oh my God, thank you. And it's just, I love the way it's spreading within my field, within the teacher field, that when I'm coming from this really warm and very clear place, this is where not miracles, but this is where I really see something growing. It was a wonderful experience, really, really wonderful.
And you could almost say that is where true pedagogical work takes place.
Yes.
It's all about true pedagogical work. And with the square, it's really helpful as well when we get into the cold clear. we can stand in front of the class and say, sweethearts, you know what? I was just down with the crocodiles for a moment. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I believed the crocodiles. Or whatever is, you know, maybe not so low, but and it helps the students when they hear, oh, you're a human being.
Yes.
You experience that. And I love the story. I had the exact same thing happen today with a guy who he's got exams next week. And he realized that he has just not produced enough assignments in order to actually sit the exam. And so he came to me and he's like, so could you not do something? And I said, no, not going to do anything, sweetie. You are going to do it. You are going to produce what's missing. And I'm going to be there for you. But I'm not going to do the job for you. And that is what they need and what they're not getting anymore. So many parents are also like, the kid gets anxious, and instead of the clarity, they bring the confusion in. Oh no, well, you better stay at home then. And they begin doing that when they're 7, 8, 9 years old. And then they wonder why they're not capable when they're older. So, yeah, I'm just excited. Excited about the potential. Just imagine the potential out there. And given the fact that teachers all became teachers because they want to help and change and educate, that's the best grounds to start from. We remind teachers of what they actually want to be.
Yes.
And I'm just, yeah, but that's for another call.
Thank you. Well, we are about at the end. So if anybody has anything, now is the chance if they want to say something. We've reached our time together. Yeah. Good. I'm just going to stop